Rome did not always kill defeated queens. Sometimes it chose something far worse. If you believe capture meant a swift execution, the truth will unsettle you. For women who wore crowns and dared to challenge Roman power, survival often became a carefully designed punishment. Their bodies lived on, but everything that once defined them, authority, honor, even legal identity, was stripped away in full view of the world. Have you ever wondered what defeat truly costs when the enemy wants more than victory? Have you ever seen power used not to end resistance, but to erase dignity so completely that others would never dare to resist again? This is the problem Rome solved with chilling precision. The empire understood that fear lasts longer than bloodshed. Killing a queen ended a threat. Keeping her alive, bound, displayed, and broken, sent a message that traveled farther than any legion. It warned every rival kingdom that crowns offered no protection once Roman chains closed around them. In the year 272 of the Common Era, Queen Zenobia stood at the height of her power, ruling lands that stretched across the Eastern world. Within 2 years, she would walk through Rome as a spectacle, not hidden, not silenced, but deliberately shown. Her fate was not an exception, it was policy. And Zenobia was not alone. Decades earlier, another queen learned what Roman soldiers were permitted to do when law no longer recognized royalty. Her suffering did not remain private. It was meant to be seen, remembered, and feared. What followed nearly burned Roman Britain to the ground. Before we continue, take a moment. If stories like this matter to you, stories that history often softens or skips, tap the like button, subscribe to History Explore, and share your thoughts in the comments. These conversations deserve attention. So here is the question you must stay for. What did Rome legally allow its soldiers to do to captured queens, and why did humiliation matter more than death? The answer begins not with violence, but with law. Roman law. How queens lost all protection. Once a ruler was defeated by Roman arms, identity itself collapsed. Roman legal tradition divided the world into those protected by citizenship and those conquered by force. Under what Romans called the law of nations, military defeat transformed free people into property. The moment an army surrendered or a city fell, its leaders and inhabitants ceased to exist as legal persons. Status, titles, and lineage vanished instantly. A queen carried no special protection. Roman law did not recognize foreign sovereignty once resistance ended. Royal blood meant nothing when measured against victory. A defeated monarch stood on the same legal ground as the lowest captured soldier. This contrast mattered deeply. Roman citizens could not be beaten or executed without legal process. Foreign captives could be punished, displayed, sold, or killed without trial. Gender offered no shield, nobility offered no exception. The law was clear, and that clarity opened the door to everything that followed. What the courts erased, the streets of Rome would soon display. Triumphs. Victory turned into public humiliation. Roman triumphs were not parades of joy, they were instruments of control. When the Senate granted a general the right to celebrate a triumph, Rome prepared a public lesson in dominance. For an entire day, the city became a stage. Streets overflowed with citizens eager to witness proof that Roman power had once again crushed resistance beyond its borders. The procession began at the Field of Mars and moved slowly through the heart of the city, winding past the Forum before climbing toward the Capitoline Hill. Every step was deliberate. Every pause allowed the crowd to absorb what victory looked like. First came musicians and performers, filling the air with celebration. After them rolled carts carrying painted scenes of conquered cities, shattered walls, and distant lands now claimed by Rome. Exotic animals followed, dragged in chains to remind spectators how far Roman legions had marched. Then came the prisoners. Captured soldiers walked in shackles, heads lowered. But at the front of this column marched the rulers, the kings and queens who had once commanded armies. They were not dressed as beggars, they were kept recognizable. Their clothing, jewelry, and symbols of authority remained visible so no one could mistake who they were or what they had lost. For queens, this walk was its own punishment. Thousands of eyes followed every step. Cheers, insults, and laughter poured from balconies and street corners. The contrast was the point. A woman who once issued commands now moved at another's pace, bound, surrounded by guards, unable to hide. This display served more than celebration. It warned allies who watched from afar. It reassured Roman citizens that rebellion always ended the same way. Most of all, it turned humiliation into spectacle. Rome did not simply defeat its enemies, it made an example of them. The march lasted hours. The uncertainty stretched longer. Prisoners did not know whether the day would end in survival or death. Some would be spared, others would be led away quietly before sunset. The waiting itself wore them down, step by step, through streets that had come to witness their fall. If this history challenges what you thought you knew about Roman glory, pause here. Share your thoughts in the comments and support the channel by liking and subscribing. These stories matter because power still uses spectacle today. Among all those who walked this path, one queen drew the full attention of Rome. Her name was Zenobia. Zenobia of Palmyra, gold chains and calculated survival. Zenobia was not a minor ruler swept aside by chance. She governed Palmyra, a desert kingdom that controlled vital trade routes between Rome and the Eastern world. At her height, her authority stretched from Egypt through Syria and into Anatolia. Coins bore her image. Armies answered her commands. Rome did not ignore her challenge, it answered it with force. In the year 272 of the Common Era, Emperor Aurelian defeated Zenobia's forces near Antioch. She attempted to flee east toward Persia, but Roman cavalry overtook her. With her capture, Aurelian secured more than victory. He secured a symbol powerful enough to anchor his triumph. 2 years later, Zenobia walked through Rome. Ancient accounts describe her appearance as carefully staged. She wore jewels that reflected sunlight, turning her into a moving display of Eastern wealth. But it was the chains that commanded attention. They were not iron. They were gold heavy enough that attendants helped support their weight as she walked. The message was unmistakable. The riches she once ruled now bound her. Her body became evidence of conquest. Yet Zenobia refused to collapse into submission. Sources note her posture, her composure, her refusal to beg. She endured hours of public exposure without surrendering the dignity Rome sought to strip away. That restraint may have preserved her life. Aurelian chose not to execute her. Whether out of admiration, calculation, or convenience, he spared her. Zenobia was granted a residence near Rome, removed from power but kept visible. Some traditions claim she married into Roman society and that her children entered elite families. This was not freedom, it was transformation. Zenobia lived as a permanent reminder that resistance ended not only in defeat, but dependence. She breathed, but she no longer ruled. Her survival served Rome's interests better than her death ever could. Her story shows how the empire understood punishment. Sometimes, the most effective way to break a rival was to let the world see them alive, diminished, and unable to reclaim what they once were. Not every queen received such calculated restraint. For another ruler in the far west, Roman punishment took a far more personal and explosive form. Boudica and the weaponization of humiliation. In Roman Britain, punishment did not stop at defeat. It reached into the body. When King Prasutagus of the Iceni died in the year 60 of the Common Era, he believed compromise could protect his family. His will divided his wealth between Emperor Nero and his daughters, a gesture meant to secure peace while preserving a measure of independence. Roman officials ignored it completely. They seized Iceni lands, confiscated property, and treated the kingdom as conquered territory. When Queen Boudica protested, Rome answered in a way designed to destroy authority at its root. According to the historian Tacitus, Boudica was publicly flogged. This was not routine discipline. It was deliberate humiliation. Beating a ruler before her own people announced that royal status no longer existed. The punishment did not end there. Roman soldiers assaulted her daughters in public view. The act was meant to reach beyond the family. It was a warning written on living bodies. Tacitus records these events without ornament. His restraint makes the meaning unmistakable. The violence was not random. It was policy enforced through cruelty. By violating the royal household, Roman officials aimed to break resistance before it could form. They misjudged what humiliation can create. Instead of submission, Britain erupted. Boudica rallied tribes that had long endured Roman control. Her call was not framed as politics alone, but as justice. Tacitus attributes to her a speech in which she declares that she fights not as a queen defending territory, but as a woman avenging abuse suffered by herself and her children. The rebellion moved fast. Roman strongholds fell, Camulodunum burned, Londinium and Verulamium followed. Tens of thousands of Roman settlers and allies were killed. For a brief moment, imperial authority in Britain teetered. Rome responded with discipline and force. At an unknown battlefield, Roman troops held their formation against a far larger force. The revolt collapsed. Order returned, but the cost shocked even Roman observers. Boudica did not submit to capture. Ancient sources claim she ended her life to avoid it. Her daughters disappear from the historical record entirely. Rome recorded no punishment, no mercy, no future for them. Silence itself became part of the outcome. This episode exposes a dangerous truth about power. Humiliation can terrify, but it can also ignite fury strong enough to shake empires. Rome sought obedience through degradation and instead created one of its most violent uprisings. If this story changes how you see Roman rule, let me know in the comments. Support History Explore by liking and subscribing if you want more history told without softening its consequences. For many defeated rulers, rebellion was impossible. Their path led not to battle, but to a place beneath Rome itself, where triumph ended and disappearance began. After the parade, execution, and the Tullianum. For some captives, the triumph was not the end of punishment. It was the pause before erasure. As the procession climbed toward the Capitoline Hill and celebrations filled the streets, select prisoners were quietly removed from the parade. Their destination lay beneath Rome itself. The Mamertine prison, known in antiquity as the Tullianum, waited nearby, hidden from cheering crowds, yet central to the ritual of victory. The structure was ancient even by Roman standards. Its upper chamber held prisoners briefly, but the lower space served a different purpose. Accessed only through an opening above, it confined the condemned in darkness, damp air, and filth. Once lowered inside, there was no ceremony left. The empire did not need witnesses anymore. History records what followed. Vercingetorix, the Gallic leader who united tribes against Julius Caesar, endured years of captivity after his defeat at Alesia in the year 52 before the Common Era. He was displayed in Caesar's triumph 6 years later. No speech followed. No judgment was read aloud. After the parade, he was taken to the Tullianum and killed. Jugurtha, king of Numidia, suffered a slower fate. Following Marius's triumph in the year 104 before the Common Era, he was cast into the lower chamber. Ancient writers describe him deteriorating into madness before starvation claimed him. Rome celebrated while his cries faded unheard. Simon bar Giora, a leader of the Jewish revolt crushed in the year 70 of the Common Era, met a similar end. Josephus records that his execution occurred while Titus completed offerings at the Temple of Jupiter. Messengers confirmed his death before the ceremony concluded. Only then was victory complete. These deaths were not acts of rage. They followed tradition. The removal of an enemy leader marked the final sealing of conquest. The public saw the triumph. The city did not see the end. Not every ruler was killed. As Zenobia's survival shows, mercy could serve strategy. But for those chosen to die, Rome ensured that their disappearance carried as much meaning as their defeat. Execution beneath the city closed the story. No body returned. No grave honored their name. Power did not only conquer land, it controlled memory. What remains today are stone walls and written accounts. Reminders that celebration and suffering once moved side by side through Rome. One final question remains. What do these stories reveal about empire and about how fear is used to keep it standing? That answer lies in the meaning we draw from the past. The fate of captured queens under Roman rule reveals how power truly operated in the ancient world. Rome's strength did not rest only on legions and steel. It relied on systems that decided who deserved dignity and who did not. Once conquest crossed a border, law shifted, protection vanished, and status dissolved. Queens who once issued commands discovered that authority existed only as long as victory sustained it. These punishments were not excesses committed by undisciplined soldiers. They followed logic. Public humiliation discouraged rebellion. Survival without power served as a warning. Death beneath the city removed rivals from memory. Each outcome played a role in preserving control. Yet history also shows the limits of fear. The abuse inflicted on Boudica and her daughters ignited resistance fierce enough to threaten Rome's hold on Britain. Humiliation silenced many, but it hardened others. Empires that rely solely on domination often misunderstand how quickly cruelty can transform into revolt. The physical reminders still exist. The stone chambers of the Mamertine prison remain beneath modern Rome. They stand as evidence that triumph and suffering once shared the same ground. What ancient writers praised as glory came at a human cost, rarely centered in celebration. These stories matter because they force us to question how power justifies itself. When law serves conquest alone, dignity becomes conditional. When humiliation replaces justice, stability depends on fear. Before you go, share your thoughts below. Do you think Rome's methods ensured its longevity or planted the seeds of resistance that eventually weakened it? If you value history that confronts uncomfortable truths, support History Explore by liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and sharing it with others who want to understand the past without illusion. Empire leaves monuments behind, but its true legacy is written in the lives it broke and the warnings it left for those who came after.